Hey, Hendy here, and welcome back to another wonderful weekly upload. Today I'm going to be having a little bit of a chat with you about Doctor Who. Now, for those of you who aren't in the know, Doctor Who is a British television show which began airing, I have no idea how long, a very long time ago, and then stopped, and then started again. So it's sort of two different sections. The show's main character being the Time Lord known as the Doctor. Now, before this gets started, I want to be very clear in the fact that I only am familiar with the most recent 5 Doctors. The most recent... yes, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If that's the amount that I know properly. And let me just explain how that works for those of you who don't know. Now, the Doctor, as I said, is a Time Lord, which is a thing in this... it's an alien, basically. An alien species who were very in touch with, surprisingly, time. I know that's crazy, but that's what it is. Now, the reason there have been multiple Doctors is a few reasons. One, so that the show can have more prolonged longevity with changing actors every 3 series, usually. Unfortunately not for Christopher Eccleston, the first Doctor of the new half, I guess, who only had 1 series, but it was very good still. He only got 1. That was due to a multitude of reasons. So, the Doctor is a Time Lord. Now, Time Lords, as I've said, are an alien species in this world who have the ability to regenerate upon death. This is something where they do a little bit of glowing and get a new body. They look all different. So, that's how they explain going through multiple actors. It's a fairly good explanation, it works fairly well, and you get some cool characters. Now, each series, or few series usually, the Doctor will always have companions. Now, these will change every few series, or every series, it depends, a lot of them have been different. However, the quality of both of these roles varies sometimes. Now, a lot of that is very often not due to the actor or actress in that position. But we'll get onto that once we get into the other parts of the thing. But what's most important is that the final episode of the most recent Doctor, Jodie Whittaker, has just aired a few days ago. And I watched it, and there's things to talk about with the whole last 3 series, unfortunately. Now, I want to preface this with, 1, a spoiler warning, as I have done with my last 3 videos, where this will spoil things. If you haven't watched Doctor Who and you feel like you want to, then don't listen. A lot of spoilers aren't very big. There are very few points that actually are massive spoilers, but this most recent episode, the ending of it, you may at least want to watch yourself. If you do, do that. Otherwise, don't. Secondly, I want to make it very clear that the reason I am slightly underwhelmed by the most recent 3 series is not because the Doctor is Jodie Whittaker, and it was the first female appearance of the Doctor. It is very definitely because of the writing of one Chris Chibnall. Now, this man has written quite a few things, and apparently quite a lot of them are good. But my god, his writing in these series of Doctor Who, being the primary showrunner, have been... Now, he has written a few episodes before these latest 3 series. The ones I am most aware of are 2 during the Matt Smith era, and those 2 are okay? They are full of a few plot holes and dialogue's a bit dicey, but overall they're still fine. But the most recent 3 haven't been. Now, again, major spoilers, just for a look at the direction and things that the old series, compared to these new ones, I want to take a look at, first of all, my favourite Doctor, David Tennant's regeneration, and then the most recent Jodie Whittaker's regeneration. And just take a little peek and tell me which one you think is better for an audience of a show.
I don't want to go. I don't want to go.
Doctor, whoever I'm about to be. Tag. You're it.
Now, as I mentioned, I'm a bit biased here, because the first Doctor and my favourite Doctor is David Tennant. He was the first one I was introduced to, and I firmly believe that as a phenomenal actor, he portrays the Doctor phenomenally. Now, of course, this was along with the writing of Stephen Moffat and along with various other writers, who I all believe did a phenomenal job. There's not a single episode that I could point at and say isn't good out of the David Tennant series. Now, a very important part of Doctor Who is obviously being a BBC series, being able to, whilst being engaging in its own story, make sure that it is approaching current issues and trying to at least put forward something. Now, one of the problems that has weighed very heavily on the last 3 series of Doctor Who has been the incredibly overt social commentary. Now, this isn't the kind of thing where a character steps out of their role and gets people to do something or something like that. This is meant to be taken entirely in character. And yet there are entire episodes where, for example, the Doctor just goes on a rant to seemingly no one about climate change. Now, obviously, climate change is a massive issue. Does it have any place in an actual story of Doctor Who? Yes. Is the way they tackled it helpful? No. It just completely detracts from the story of the episode, whilst feeling overbearing entirely. The main problem with the message in that specific episode, it could have very simply just been done in the way the story was meant to take place, where the characters eventually learn they are on a future version of Earth, where it has become completely desolate due to climate change. And that could be the message itself. Show, don't tell. A very important part of any storytelling. Show, don't tell being where you show something, you show it, but you don't tell. You see, you don't have it to be stated. It doesn't have to be stated because the message should be clear. All that had to be done was for them to find out that they were on Earth, and that is the beat. That's the story beat. That shows the message, and that makes sense in the show, and as well as making sense in the show. It gets the message across. It's great. It's brilliant. Doing something like that would be great. You don't need to have the Doctor lecture her companions who are travelling through time about climate change. Like, come on, man. Oh, hell no, bro. Another, and possibly the greatest major issue of the latest 3 series has been the use of words. The dialogue that some of these characters have been made to say has been incredibly off the point. The ways that characters interact and speak to each other, and the ways that certain elements are brought up, are entirely negligible and just not interesting or funny or anything. They just sound stupid. And that's not from a master of conversation, that's from a regular guy. Like, what the hell are you talking about when you're talking like that? I think my main issue with the last 3 series is its complete neglection of all of the previous works. The whole point of Doctor Who is that its identity is supposed to change as it progresses. But it's not meant to ignore what it was before. In fact, it never does. There are always little references and pokes at what has been and what won't be again. Usually. Yet, at multiple points in these 3 series, the Doctor completely overwrites things that they have done or said in previous ones. The biggest example of a complete lack of respect for the previous work is the timeless child. Now, this was a major plot point that had been hinted at for a while and not properly explained, where there was meant to be some child who defied time. Now, that's pretty cool. What isn't cool is that its full reveal completely obliterates things that have already happened and the entire canon around the Time Lords that has already been set up. A major point about the biology of a Time Lord is that they can only regenerate 11 times. I'm pretty sure it's 11. Now, when the 11th Doctor, Matt Smith's time came to an end, he had to make a bargain, or deal, with the Time Lords of Gallifrey through a crack in space-time to get 11 more lives. And this was a very climactic moment. It was the end of his entire story, and it was cool. It was pretty big, and it worked. It worked really well, and obviously it allows them to make the show longer, but it still feels right in the world. It doesn't step on any toes. The latest 3 series reveal of the Doctor as the timeless child, who can regenerate a innumerable amount of times, completely obliterates that entire moment. That now has no meaning anymore. There was now no point in that, and it's just frustrating. Another major problem with these last 3 series, you'll get to notice there are quite a few of them, is it seems to realise that it's not particularly good, and instead tries to pull on as much nostalgia and that kind of thing in order to get people to, be like, oh look, it's that thing, I know that thing, I love that thing. But then also completely misses the mark and ends up treading all over that. For example, Cybermen and Daleks are used like 5 or 6 different times throughout the last 3 series. Cybermen are somewhat acceptable. They've never been the most major thing, yet it was always fairly cool when they showed up, and it was usually reserved for 2 or 3 times a series, maybe, if they felt like it. The Daleks, however, are meant to be the apex threat of Doctor Who, the higher than high. They were the race that the Time Lords fought against in their final war, and also are completely unfeeling, killing machines, etc., who are terrifying. genuinely, when you first see the Daleks and hear how terrified the Doctor is of them, you get terrified too. Yet in the last 3 series, the Daleks have appeared so many times that they have sort of lost their scare factor. Daleks aren't special anymore. And I hate that. Now the final issue, also dealing with nostalgia, is the return of certain characters, and then, again, complete destruction of them. For example, Captain Jack Harkness returns in this series for a couple of episodes. Now, Captain Jack was a fantastic character who was first introduced in Christopher Eccleston's series and then carried over into David Tennant's. And while at first I was really happy to see him in the new series, that happiness quickly dissolved as I realised they had sort of completely overlaid his character and also gave him some of the worst dialogue in the show. All of these points come to a head in the final episode of the series, the one that just aired a couple of days ago. This episode really is the peak for dredging up old things and trying to make you think it's a good thing just because you recognise something you used to know. First of all, let it be clear that both the Cybermen and the Daleks are in this episode, because of course they are, but also is the Master, another character that is incredibly overused in these last 3 series, meant to be a threat above the Daleks, another Time Lord. Someone just as strong or stronger than the Doctor, and even more manipulative. Yet, once again, the character is stepped all over. The Master was always crazy, but the different feats that he decides to do in this episode are completely bonkers. He captures the Doctor and starts dancing to Rasputin. I get that he is Rasputin at the time, but the Master was never happy in his craziness. It was always madness that he wanted to leave. Never this. It's just pathetic and it annoys me. The episode also sees the return of a lot of the actors from the original series, the original few Doctors, and they're not really, there's no point to them. They are just cameos, which in itself is fine, but then 2 of the sort of major characters in this episode are 2 of the Doctor's ex-companions, who I personally have never seen before. But my parents, who are watching it with me, have, and oh boy can they say that those were not anywhere close to what they were in the past, and their acting skills, along with the writing dialogue, was not good. It was really, it made my skin crawl. It was incredibly cringe. And I don't want to use the word cringe, because that's cringe, but I have to, because that is the only word to describe what it was. Now there's one final point I want to come across before I move on to the finale and the future, okay? And that is the relationship between Yasmin Khan and the Doctor in the last 4 episodes of this series. That's right, they just decided this is the thing that's happening. There were never any hints to it before, but it is. Yasmin Khan is one of the Doctor's accomplices in these series, and develops romantic feelings for them in the last 4 episodes, out of nowhere, with no lead up whatsoever. Now, I understand a lot of people have a problem with this because it's a lesbian relationship, but you've got to understand that the Doctor is technically gender fluid, transitioning between whichever gender of the body that they are, and their sexual preference seems to remain the same, which makes sense. That's something that makes sense. So I'm defending that because the Doctor has liked women in the past, still does when the Doctor is a woman. That makes sense. Fair enough. But what I don't like about this thing happening is the fact there's no lead up to it. It is just one episode. We are just told that they like it just happens. I don't want I never want to just accept something because I am told it. And I never want there to never be any foreshadowing of an event, especially something human, like feelings, and it just appear. You know, it's not, you know, do better. Now, the final thing is the new Doctor's regeneration, which happens at the end of this episode. The actual regeneration is my favourite part of the last 3 series, because this happens. Now, it has been confirmed that Chris Chibnall is leaving writing Doctor Who now. He won't be writing any more episodes, I believe, which I am thankful for. No offense to the guy, all of his other works are pretty good, but he was not meant to write Doctor Who, in my opinion. This is all opinion, but I think it's right because it's mine. But with the reappearance of David Tennant to act in a few more episodes as the Doctor, and looking forward to the return of Donna Noble for at least a couple, the 4th series of Doctor Who with Donna Noble and the 10th Doctor were my favourite. It's such a great pairing, they bounce off of each other incredibly well, and at the time the writing was phenomenal, the dialogue between them was fantastic. And with the return of some of the original showrunners, I'm really looking forward to what the future has. But when anyone in the future is looking back through Doctor Who and watching all of this, and they get to this one Doctor, these 3 series that feel completely off compared to the rest, they're gonna have to just think, this show must have an identity crisis. Thank you very much for watching. I'm really, really hoping that good things are in the future for Doctor Who. Again, with the return of some of the original showrunners and David Tennant, as well as the new Doctor, who I'm sure will also be excellent, I am very hopeful for the future. However, obviously, still a bit annoyed about the last 3 series. But anyway, I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. Apologies for the last video. I have learned from ever making a video on an anime or manga because Japanese copyright companies are apparently very brutal and kept entirely blocking the video for content which I entirely deem as fair use. So a lot of, pretty much all of the background music, the background video, and the last few minutes of the video had to be completely removed in order to even get it uploaded. So my apologies for that. Also, quick update, the Undertale Delta Rune Theory Part 2 will be getting released in a couple weeks. I've started work on it. It's in the works, okay? It'll be out. Just give it a minute. And by a minute, I mean a couple weeks. Yeah. But thank you so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed, go down below and subscribe. You may notice from the fact that I didn't say subscribe earlier just how much I love talking about this. So the button's down there. If it's red, press it. If it's grey, don't press it. There's a bell as well. Once you press it, press the bell, press the bell, press the bell, press the thumbs up, press the bell, press the bell, press the bell, press the bell, click all. Okay. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.